Hello and welcome back to another Gunpla review. Today we're taking a look at the high-grade Build Divers Denial Gundam. The Denial Gundam is a mobile suit based around melee combat. As such, its accessories are based around physical attacks. As such, this is one of what I'm going to be coining the term as a stand Gunpla. And no, that's not a JoJo reference. I mean, any Gunpla that requires a stand in order to be fully utilized with all of its accessories. Now, some stand Gunpla do come with a stand, such as the Moon Gundam or the Jupitive Gundam. However, the Denial and the recent Destiny Gundam, which was my last review, check that out, don't. And this kit in particular really does require a stand in order to be properly shown off. Anyway, I've talked for long enough. Let's get into the articulation, shall we? Okay, and finally getting into the usable range of articulation for the Denial. This is about as far back as you're going to get with this hairpiece. Over removing it for the get that out of the way for the sake of showing off the articulation. This does come out, so there is a peg there. Also, it does not come with a rear camera sticker, though considering this covers up the camera, not too big of a deal. This is a rotation joint, obviously. It can actually look back quite far when there's no hair in the way. It can also look down fairly well. There is supposed to be a... oh, if I can get the head off. No, I cannot. It sounded pretty tight. It's on a ball joint, but there's also a 2-hinge system. There's one down low, but there's also one in the middle of the neck, which I'm not sure if I can actually show off unless I try and rip the head off, and I don't really want to do that. But on mine it's so tight it doesn't even move anyway. So effectively you have 2 points of articulation at the head. Now at the shoulder you get a slight movement of the actual torso itself towards the front, which actually looks pretty good. Thankfully, sometimes when you get the chest moving out like this, it looks kind of broken and not very good. But in this case, it actually maintains a fairly cohesive appearance. This is just a socket for the ball, and it's also hard plastic, not a polycap. So do keep in mind, this is about as far forward as the arm goes. There's no hinge inside of here, it's just a socket attached into the actual torso. You of course get a, and you see that's the plastic on plastic, you can hear it snap once it settles a bit. But you of course get a full rotation, you get a little bit of wiggle aside from that. You get, no, here's the thing, you have to get this piece out in order to get the arm out, but it doesn't actually make much of a difference in outwards movement. You can get it out to about 90 degrees, and that's about as far as you're going to get it. One thing that is kind of confusing to me is this is very clearly, if I can grab the art, attached on to the upper arm in any of the artwork. but on the actual model kit it is made into a separate piece. And I have no idea why they did that, because it just makes the articulation slightly worse. But anyway, you do get a rotation at the upper arm. This side is much tighter for some reason. Oh, it just seized up because I hadn't moved it in a while. That was a very concerning noise all the same though. At least sounded like it broke. Get that plug back in. That doesn't actually fall off that much. I don't really know why it did. You get... Anyway, you get a very nice bend at the elbow. However, it goes back further than it probably should. So you're going to have to be careful with that when you're posing it, because the arm can break. Also, these elbow pads don't like to stay on, I guess. But anyway, moving on to the wrist, ball joint, and also it has the fighter style hinge, and most of the hand options do have that. Moving into the waist, and as you saw, polycap ball joint. So it gets a very nice range at the waist. There's also a second ball joint down here. However, it's more of a rotation than a proper ball joint. If I can pull that off. Sort of a reverse barbell joint for the waist. You can pull it up a bit to get a lot more to the side. However, it's meant mostly for just rotation. Getting into the skirts, and this only comes up this far, which is odd, honestly. Kind of feels like it should come up to here, but you can feel it click at this point. So you can technically get it up to here, but it's not... Oh, jump cut. I just smacked my camera to the side. I don't really know how that happened. But anyway. Yeah, the front skirt is just on a hinge, and it is a single front skirt, so there's no need to separate it. The back skirt is a little bit premium in that it is hinged and does actually have the proper color on the inside since it's two pieces. The hip skirts are nice, as didn't mean to rip it off, but now that it's off I can show you. It's on a hinge in the actual thigh itself, as well as on a collapsed ball joint. I'm just going to make sure that goes back on. That wasn't supposed to happen. Just a moment. Just everything possible is going wrong during this review. Jeez. It's the curse of the final kit, I guess. I really hope that doesn't become a trend. That's not going to be fun. Anyway. Oh boy. Sorry, I'm editing like most of this out, but if you saw how many just weird things happened right now, it's not fun. The hips are on a rocking joint, and also I noticed that the 3mm peg hole is starting to get stressed. However, it hasn't gotten any worse, so I assume it's just sort of fixed itself to the right size, and now it'll be all right. So the hips can shift from side to side, which allows the leg to go back fairly far forward, up to about 90 degrees if you shift the hips, and have that click up a full 90 degrees. Out if you move the hips, skirts out of the way. to be able to get easily a high kick. And of course you get a rotation at the upper thigh. However, it does get blocked since the side skirts are attached onto the leg. Also, the raised area here smacks into the waist, so you only get about that much movement. I'm going to stop doing that before the leg falls off again. Anyway, you get a slightly ridiculously deep knee bend. And it doesn't look broken or anything when it's bent, which is nice. Sometimes you get mobile suits that when you bend the knee, it kind of looks weird. In this case, it looks fine. Moving on to the ankle, and it has a pivot joint up above the ankle armor. The ankle armor is attached on by a ball joint into the back of that piece, which allows for a bit of movement, but nothing crazy. And the foot is attached on by a ball joint. However, because of the design of the foot itself, it doesn't get a ton of range. It only moves back about that far, and that's including the hinge joint on the actual leg itself. Comes forward that far, which isn't very far at all, actually. And it only gets a very slight ankle pivot side to side. Not very deep at all, which is surprising given that this is a melee combat oriented mobile suit. You think they would have more articulated ankles. There are a few missed opportunities, in my opinion. The shoulders definitely should have had a hinged polycap in them. I kind of feel like they could have done something a bit different with the side skirts. And of course the ankle definitely should have had more articulation range, but overall the range of the mobile suit isn't too bad. The waist in particular has a lot of range to it, and the elbows being able to double bend up properly gives a lot of posing options. And speaking of posing options, the Denial Gundam comes with so many effect parts and hand options that I'm having trouble fitting it all into frame. Let's start with the hands and get those out of the way. You get splayed hands. You get chopping hands. You get holding hands, even though this mobile suit doesn't come with any weapons. I mean, why would it need to? It is still nice that they include these, as it allows for a lot more posing options. And that's the thing about this kit. Posing options. So many posing options. Then you get a pair of closed fists, separate from the holding hands, which is not something you see too much anymore. And then you also get these second pair of closed fists, which have slots cut into them and are obviously made out of the translucent purple plastic that the effect parts are made out of. And they plug into these punching effect parts and stay fairly secure. They're not going to fall out or anything. You get two of these. And to use them, you just pull off one of the hands and plug in the fists, obviously. You also get this kicking effect part, and this plugs into the ankle. at a slightly awkward angle, but let's get that in there. And you close it around the foot. And it doesn't want to stay on. But I'm not sure if that's user error or if it just doesn't like to stay. But that does work, and it is a very effective effect part. That sounded better in my head, but I'll stick with it. For these punching and kick effect parts, you get a bunch of energy trails coming off of them. Now this may seem like a lot, but you get 3 different sizes, small, medium, and large, and you can mix and match these into any of the little slots that you can see around the effect parts. And they simply plug in however you want. Same goes for the other punch and also the kick. They are located around the sides of that. You also get these parts, which attach onto these this way and just change the peg orientation from being flat against the back to being at more of an angle. For the accessories that go onto the arms, you get 2 of these wrist-mounted beam daggers, which actually look quite nice. Maybe a tiny bit short, but considering they're more daggers than sabers, works. They don't fall out. You also get these flame effects, which plug into the same slot, and these do fall out. They could definitely be a bit tighter in there, but it's not too big of a deal. You also get these shoulder-mounted flames, which is very nice looking. And they sort of sweep towards the back. Then getting into the back, you get 2 very wide peg joints, and you actually do get an adapter for them, which you can just plug in there, and that gives you the standard 2 pegs and also a central peg, which is nice. Not super tight on mine, but again, don't know if that's just my kit. For the back, you get these sort of flame energy wings, which are actually supposed to go on this way around, pointing more towards the bottom. And you can see what they look like, and they can be angled up or down, however you like. They just peg into those 2 holes on the back. As well, you get the same flame effects as the Tri-Burning Gundam, except obviously in a glitter purple. And these personally are my favorites. They look very nice, and also the pegs used for the rotation joints are compatible. As you saw at the beginning, I swapped this one over to this side and had it wrap around the arm. Also, you get 2 different hair options. Obviously, you get the wider Nobel Gundam style ponytail, as well as the more tied up thin ponytail, which, much like the Tri-Burning Flames, also has 3 different points of articulation. One at the head, obviously, a swivel here, and another swivel down at the bottom. Now, all of these effect parts together mean you have so many different posing options for this kit that I can't even begin to show all of them off. As for size comparisons, the Denial Gundam is a fairly standard mobile suit. Not really tall or short. Fairly standard build, too, aside from the thick thighs. To wrap this review up, the Denial Gundam is a quirky kit, I guess is the best way to put it. It has both positives and negatives. The articulation is mostly good, but it does get held back by the rather limited ankles, and also the shoulders can be a little bit limiting. However, that's not to say that the posability of the mobile suit is in any way lackluster. It is a fairly solid kit. And if you're like me and you happen to like this design, I can at least recommend it. The amount of posing options alone almost make this kit worth it. And while your own personal taste about the glittery, translucent effects may differ, I quite like the effect. It looks quite nice, in my opinion. It looks good in person, anyway. I'm not sure how well it's going to come across on camera. But anyway, be sure to let me know what you think about the kit down in the comments. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe for future reviews and also watch my backlog. But that's all for this review. Until next time, as always, happy building.